At the end of March of 2009, Brittanee started asking if she could go to Myrtle Beach with her friends. I guess a lot of her friends were talking about it.
Everyone in Rochester goes to Myrtle Beach for spring break. It was the fun and cool thing to do. There's clubs and bars. There's sand and sun. It's more lenient. So they know they can get into the clubs. They know they can probably get drinks and not be ID'd at the door.
I never did anything like that when I was younger. I said, Brittanee, you're not going to Myrtle Beach. I said, you need to catch up on school. And she said, but I really want to go. I said, Brittanee, you're not going. I said, there's no parental supervision and something's going to happen to you. You know, I would watch these things on TV about spring break and the stuff that happens.
Spring break is already in full swing, and so are the underage drinking arrests.
With her being only 17 years old, her being as beautiful as she was, I didn't want anybody to take advantage of her. She was so angry with me. And I mean, she called me every name in the book and she was just really upset.
Back then, I think Brittanee was going through a tough time with Dawn and her dad.
At the time that she wanted to go out to Myrtle Beach, my sister was going through a depression because my dad and my mom were going through a separation.
At her age, she understood why they were getting a divorce. But I think she was like, am I not going to have the same home life? Am I not going to be with them all the time?
Chad had left the house, and Brittanee, I think at that point, she just wanted to get away. She wanted to get away from, you know, the arguing and going back and forth and, you know, the divorce. And I feel horrible. I feel horrible because she was going through so much. Later that night, she said, Mom, can I stay at my friend's house for a few days since it's my spring break? And I said, yes, as long as there's parental supervision, that would be okay.
A few days later, me and my mom were at a mall picking out soccer stuff because me and my sister both played soccer at the time.
I sent pictures to Brittanee of the soccer cleats for their upcoming season. And I said, well, what are you doing later? And she said, we're going to hang out here and then watch a movie. And then she said, like, I'll see you tomorrow, Mom. I love you. That night, I was getting the kids' pajamas on, and my phone rang. It was John Greco. He said, Brittanee's in Myrtle Beach and they can't find her. What do you mean you can't find my daughter? I was like, oh my God.
John and I knew that Brittanee was in Myrtle Beach. She had gone down there with these girls that were older than her. They were people that she knew from just going out and through mutual friends. She had invited me to go with her. I was working full-time and I couldn't go. She asked John, but John was working full-time as well. And he told her, he was like, go have a good time for me. It was between 9:30 and 10 o'clock. John called me absolutely frantic that he can't get a hold of Brittanee.
When John called me, I started calling Brittanee's phone. It was ringing and ringing and ringing. And then went to voicemail.
We knew that her phone wasn't dead because it's still ringing.
This is not like her. Brittanee was on her phone all the time. Brittanee would text, that's all she did, 24 hours a day.
Dawn kept calling her, and then I would call her from my cell phone.
Everyone was very, very frantic.
Look at this, just going along, wondering how you're doing today. Give me a call if you get a chance.
Brittanee,
Hey, John, this better not be a joke. Nobody knows where you are. We're going to call your mother. Let me use the papa. Call me so it's a town, please. You need to call me back.
Just give me a quick text so I know that everything's okay. As long as you're okay.
So I know you're okay.
And then we called the other kids that were with her, the ones that drove her down there.
They said they hadn't seen her since the morning. They were all trying to find Brittanee as well.
All of a sudden, her phone just stopped ringing. It just went directly to voicemail.
Hey, leave a message and I'll get back to you soon.
That's like when my heart just dropped. I knew that she was in danger.
My name is Steph Watts. I'm an investigative journalist, and I cover the Brittanee Drexel case. When people think of Myrtle Beach, it's a destination area. It's beaches, it's a strip, it's clubs, it's hanging out, it's sun and sand, and it can be a fun place. Unfortunately, there's a much darker side to it.
Right now, the police department is working with multiple agencies to help keep crime at bay.
When you have a place like Myrtle Beach where people are going to party, that can open up a window to a much darker world. Human trafficking, excessive drug use, and violent crimes.
Bullets and robberies here in Myrtle Beach.
When you actually dig into the numbers and the crime stats, it's pretty shocking. Especially back in 2009, Myrtle Beach had a violent crime rate that was more than 3 times higher than the national average. So Myrtle Beach is not some little small town police department.
When we found out Brittanee was in Myrtle Beach and they couldn't find her, everyone was in a panic. We called the Myrtle Beach Police Department to report her missing. And they said normally when kids go missing there, they're with somebody on the beach or they met up with somebody. And we had to convince them, like, no, this is not like Brittanee. She's not answering her phone. So they took the missing persons report, but it listed her as an endangered runaway. And when he told me that, I was really pissed. I was mad because I know Brittanee. She wouldn't run away. The next morning, I thought, you know what? I'm going to go to Myrtle Beach. I mean, I had to find Brittanee.
When Dawn had called me and I said, okay, yep, I'll come with you.
So we packed up. I drove all the way to Myrtle Beach.
It was John, her boyfriend, myself, and Brittany's grandparents and Brittany's mother, Dawn. We're just gonna go get Brittanee and bring her home.
On April 26, 2009, I was at my desk and I had one of the detectives come in with a patrol officer that had taken a report of a missing person. Missing persons reports, generally they're resolved within 24 hours. But in this case, the detective saw that there was a lot of red flags. We found out that Brittanee Drexel was an athlete. She didn't drink, didn't do drugs, and didn't have a history of being a party girl. Also, she had been in constant communication and abruptly stopped, and no one had been able to reach her. One of the first things we did in the investigation is go to her hotel where she was staying.
Brittanee had arrived in Myrtle Beach Thursday morning and checked into the Bar Harbor Hotel with her friends that she traveled down with. That's 2 days before she disappeared.
All of her clothes were there, everything was there. And when she went missing, all she had with her was some money and her phone. It was quite evident that she hadn't run away. So we were very, very concerned immediately. And then we interviewed the girls that she came down with. They had no idea where she was or what she was doing. They actually had very little to do with Brittanee because she's younger than they were. They did what they came to do. They went out and went places she couldn't go.
Brittanee was kind of left to fend for herself in Myrtle Beach. It's possible that's what things really went wrong for her.
The girls were scared as well. Someone that you came with is no longer answering your cell phone. No one's seen her, no one knows where she is.
Where is she? She was a beautiful girl. Her heart, everything. And just gone. We drove 18 hours. And I remember we just kept calling her phone, hoping that she would answer. Call after call after call.
Please leave a message and I'll get back to you soon. The mailbox is full.
The phone's still not turned on. Her voicemail was full. And on the drive down, we had the sense of urgency that maybe she's not okay. Maybe she can't get to a phone. The next day, as soon as we stepped outside of that vehicle in Myrtle Beach, it was boots on the ground for all of us.
After we talked to law enforcement, the first thing I did was went to the TV station and try to get Brittanee's name and face out there. I had watched a lot of shows on missing persons, and I know that awareness is everything. Then we went down to Ocean Boulevard to start looking for Brittanee and pass out flyers.
We went to every surf shop, every restaurant, every convenience store, and then every hotel, showing Brittanee's photo, asking if she had been there. And once it got dark that night, Brittanee's boyfriend, John, he was like, I'm staying out here. I'm not done looking for her.
That very night, a local news station airs a story on the disappearance of Brittanee.
Someone who could have taken her, she could be laying dead somewhere. It's tearing me up inside. I was very, very, very upset.
Within just hours of the first story airing, multiple people reported seeing someone who looked like Brittanee Drexel on a bus in Myrtle Beach.
It gave us hope. We're like, okay, she is here. There was a lead of a small blonde girl, and the description of who this person was very close to Brittanee. And we had heard it multiple times that she was seen at a bus stop. We went up and down that boulevard over and over and over again, thinking that we were just a step behind her.
And we were able to track down the girl, but it was not Brittanee. When you have a missing person, you try to look at all possible aspects of what could have transpired. We wanted to make a timeline to give us a roadmap of where she went, what she was doing for the last 3 days that she was here. One of the first things we did was get Brittanee's phone records, and they had told everything that she was doing. We learned that she was texting nonstop the whole time she was here with her boyfriend, John Greco.
day after Brittanee arrived, she connected with a whole bunch of other kids from Rochester that were down there. Brittanee was having a great time, but a couple days into the trip, things weren't going so well. Brittanee went to Myrtle Beach to get away from Rochester, but it was not what she expected.
I think that Brittanee kind of felt alone. Friday evening, we found out that Brittanee had been walking on the boulevard by herself.
Saturday, the day Britt went missing, detectives learned that she started the day off by herself at the beach.
At some point, Brittanee ran across Peter Brozowitz, who was a boy that she knew.
Peter was a popular and well-known club promoter back in Rochester. He's down in Myrtle Beach as well with a group of friends.
She would go to events that he would throw.
Brittanee apparently spent some time with him on the beach.
Him and Brittanee had been close friends, which is why I think Brittanee felt so comfortable hanging out with him at the beach.
That evening, Brittanee receives a text from Peter.
The phone records also show that at 8 p.m., Brittanee went to get those shoes.
Brittanee leaves her hotel, the Bar Harbor Hotel, to head south down Ocean Boulevard to Peter's hotel, the Blue Water. That walk's about a mile and a half.
One of the first things that we did when we found out where Brittanee was going, we checked all the cameras along Ocean Boulevard. We actually were able to get one video of her walking south, somewhere around 6th Avenue South.
While she's heading to Peter's hotel, she gets a text message from one of the friends she's traveled down with.
I know my sister, she was annoyed and probably like, F this girl. Like, why are you really mad over shorts? Like, really?
After walking a little more than half an hour, Brittanee arrives at Peter's hotel at 8:33 p.m.
The Blue Water had cameras at the door that showed Brittanee coming in, so we knew that she had in fact reached her destination.
At 8:48 p.m., surveillance cameras capture her leaving.
She was alone going out. There was no indication of being followed or duress.
But it appeared she was not in a good state of mind when she left Peter's hotel.
While she was heading back, she was conversing with John Greco. And then suddenly all communication stopped.
to get excuses.
I hope you're feeling better. I'll forget about me after you. But once you get this, give me a text. I know that you got it, okay? I love you. Bye. Brittany, you need to pick up the phone. You need to answer my calls to let me know you're okay, all right? Why won't you answer the phone? Please call me back. Please call me back.
She never did reach the camera at 6th Avenue that recorded her earlier. So we knew that whatever happened to Brittany took place between the Blue Water Resort and 6th Avenue.
Detectives eventually tracked down Peter. He said, yes, Brittany was at the hotel and she took her flip-flops and left. That's the last time he saw Brittany, and he has no idea what happened to her.
Everything we found out was he had nothing to do with this.
It just didn't make a lot of sense that no one seemed to see anything. She was in busy Myrtle Beach. There's people all over the place. She's caught on, the traffic cameras, walking down Ocean Boulevard. She was there 1 second and she was gone in the next.
In the last 24 hours, there have been no more reported sightings of 17-year-old Brittanee Drexel, who went missing here in Myrtle Beach.
But we're going to continue looking for her. We're one step behind her. People keep saying that they've seen her somewhere. But every time we'd follow up on one of those leads, we would hit another wall. And then we kept hitting wall after wall after wall. I think the darkest moment for me was when the phone records where her cell phone had last pinged came in, and the police were like, this doesn't make any sense.
One of the detectives suggested that we get a tower dump. And that just means the cell phone pings of Brittanee Drexel's phone. It was quite evident that she left the Blue Water Resort. Was heading back to the Bar Harbor where she was staying. Walking north on Ocean Boulevard. And then suddenly her phone started moving faster and going south on Highway 17. Every tower that she would pass would ping. And by the rate of travel, she was obviously in a vehicle of some kind. She went south from Myrtle Beach and through Georgetown, and then south of Georgetown toward the North Santee River. The last ping was in the area called the Pole Yard. It's a boat landing that's used by fishermen, shrimpers, and duck hunters. It's a very desolate, dark, bug-infested place, approximately 50 miles from Myrtle Beach. The last ping came from the area of roughly a 1 square mile circle. At this point, we knew we were going to have help, so we incorporated the help of Georgetown County Police.
My name is Hank Carrison. I'm a senior investigator at the Georgetown County Sheriff's Office. Santee River Delta area is a remote area. It's kind of dangerous. There's wildlife out there. There's alligators. There's feral hogs. The last time I was out there was a rattlesnake as big as my thigh. 17-year-old teenage girl from New York. She would have had no reason to go out there. It was immediately apparent. There was some kind of malicious act you were dealing with at that point in time.
We started our searches down along the North and South Santee River. We're looking for any human remains.
We were also looking for evidence of a crime or some kind of crime scene.
With a helicopter, they're mapping search zones around the cell phone tower.
Georgetown County Sheriff's Office ran boats in the river with side-scan sonar looking in the water for anything. There was ground penetrating radar, to see if there were any shallow or clandestine graves that were dug in the area.
We were brought to the area where they were searching. It's just all woods, like going all the way there, and then you have the water, and then you keep going further, and there's more woods.
I'm not gonna leave here until I have my daughter. I can't. Even though I have 2 small children at home, I can't.
They searched from sunup to sundown. You've got helicopters flying. You've got people running ATVs, horseback. The Q Center for Missing Persons did multiple searches on Brittanee in a lot of different areas. It just everybody out there searching for your child.
But they find nothing. No traces of Brittanee, no sign of a crime, no cell phone, no articles of clothing, nothing.
There was no doubt in anybody's minds that Brittanee's cell phone ended up somewhere in the Santee River Delta until it either was destroyed or lost power. So we're operating under the assumption that Brittanee was in the area at that point in time, and there's nothing there. It's not good news.
But I just had to keep going. As much as I could get her out on the media and as much as I could tell her story.
Now we turn to the frantic search for a missing New York teen. The last time anyone heard from Brittanee Drexel was on Saturday night.
This became a national story, a big national story. In this case, just checked all the boxes that the traditional media likes in a missing persons case. I mean, you've got a pretty young girl, blonde hair, blue eyes.
17-year-old Brittanee Drexel left Rochester, New York for a spring break trip to Myrtle Beach, South Carolina. Her whereabouts since are unknown.
We're still remaining hopeful that, she'll return home or we'll get a break in the case.
But at some point, people had to get back to their lives. John and Tara, exhausted, sad, and frustrated, returned home to Rochester.
I came back to Rochester after 2 weeks. I didn't want to leave, but I still had a job. Her brother and sister came over to my house, and Camden looked at me. He's 5 years old, and Camden looks at me and says, "Where's Britt? Why didn't you bring Britt home?" I had to look at a 5-year-old little boy and tell him I couldn't find his sister and I didn't know where his sister was.
First time I was down in Myrtle Beach, I stayed there for a total of 2 months. I did go home just for a couple days and then flew back to Myrtle Beach to continue to search for Brittanee. And then the days went into weeks, and then the weeks went into months. As the time passes, you lose hope. You lose a lot of hope, that your child's not just never going to be found.
In July of 2010, more than a year after Brittanee disappears, the Myrtle Beach Police Department get a call from a young woman who claims that someone attempted to abduct her in the same area that Brittanee Drexel disappeared. She was walking down Ocean Boulevard, and a van pulled up, and 3 men attempted to abduct her. The young woman says she managed to fight them off, but was able to describe the van and what the men looked like. Everyone's like, these are probably the same guys that took Brittany Drexel. News breaks quickly of the young woman's attempted abduction, and it really got people excited that maybe they were going to find out what happened to Brittany Drexel.
It happened Wednesday afternoon near 22nd Avenue South and Ocean Boulevard, when the woman says 3 men pulled up in a van and tried to abduct her.
Myrtle Beach police take a photo lineup and ask her to if any of these faces look familiar. She identifies one of the men as her potential abductors. The police identify him as a man named Sean Taylor. It turns out that Sean Taylor lives in McClellanville, which is close to where Brittany's cell phone last pinged. Police arrest him for the attempted abduction of this young woman. Sean Taylor tells police that he had nothing to do with the abduction. He claims it was 30 minutes away at a restaurant, and there's no way he could have been on the strip on Myrtle Beach, and there's no way he could have been involved. Police don't believe him.
Sean Taylor also said that he did not have anything to do with Brittany's disappearance. Then at some point, he shut down and refused to talk anymore.
Sean Taylor's released on bail while the police continue their investigation. Detectives eventually track down security footage from the restaurant that Sean Taylor claims he was at, and they see him there, placing him at the restaurant at the same time that this young woman said she was being abducted. And they dropped the charges against him.
They're convinced Sean played no role in this latest attempted abduction or Brittany Drexel's disappearance.
You had your ups and you had your downs. You would get a good tip in and then it didn't work out. It was a crazy roller coaster ride, I can tell you that.
With no new leads, it's slowing down. And so there's other cases that they need to work on that have evidence or have more solid leads. And at this point, there was nothing until 2011.
In January of 2011, investigators get a phone call from a woman who says that her own father may have been involved in the disappearance of Brittany Drexel. Her father's name was Raymond Moody.
Ray Moody was as bad as it gets in South Carolina. He was a level 3 or a tier 3 sex offender, which is the worst of the worst. This guy was a monster.
Raymond Moody's daughter says she got this information from a man named Ernie Merchant.
And it was Ernie who had said that he had reason to believe that Raymond was involved in Brittany's disappearance.
My name is Ernie Merchant. I am a former romantic partner of Ray Moody. When I was visited by law enforcement, Ray and I were not together. I hadn't seen him in maybe a year. I said, "Is this about the Ray Moody situation?" And they said, "Yes, it was. Can you come down to the sheriff's department?" I wanted to be very cooperative and as transparent as I could be. So I told them my story with Ray Moody. It was about 1998, a period of my life where I succumbed to methamphetamine addiction, which ultimately led me to prison, which is where I met Ray Moody. We talked, we told each other our life stories. We spent a lot of time together. He took care of me in that prison. He kept me safe. He told me that he loved me, and I found myself falling in love with him. When I was getting ready to be released, He said, I need to tell you the truth about why I'm here. When I left the facility, Ray and I continued to communicate and to make plans to be together in the outside world. Ray was a native of Georgetown, South Carolina, and in 2005 moved back to the area after 20 plus years in prison. And I decided to move here to be with him. We found a job in a local cabinet making shop, and we just lived a very quiet life of domesticity. It wasn't until later on that I discovered that Ray was having an affair. Her name was Angel Voss. He said, I just wanted to do something different and just want to go have some fun. And I just said, that's it. You know, this is over. He moved out of the house and moved in with Angel. But Ray was still around. He had the garage set up as a wood shop. So occasionally he would still be working in there. He would come and go. During this period, I heard about a young girl that had disappeared in Myrtle Beach. You know, there were billboards. Everybody in town knew about this. One day, he was working at my house, and his girlfriend, Angel, called. She was obviously very inebriated and hysterical. She did not want Ray at my house. She wanted him to leave immediately. I felt that she was threatening him. And she said, I know things. I will send us both to prison before I will let him go. And I'm like, what are you talking about? And she said, that girl. And I said, what girl? She wouldn't tell me who. Wouldn't tell me what it was about. But the first thing that came into my mind was, is she talking about Brittanee Drexel?
In 2011, Ernie Merchant tells investigators that during a phone call, Ray Moody's current girlfriend hinted at Ray's involvement in Brittanee Drexel's disappearance. And now Ray Moody is a possible suspect in Brittanee's case.
And I told them, I confronted Ray. I said, your girlfriend is on the phone, and she is talking crazy. And he was, you know, trying to convince me that it was nothing, that it was not important. She's just drinking, she's upset. I said, did you have anything to do with that girl that disappeared in Myrtle Beach? He told me, of course I didn't. I would never do something like that. I told you I would never hurt anybody. And I accepted it. I didn't have any reason not to. And the police asked me if I would be willing to wear a wire to get him to say something to expose himself. And I told them that I did not feel comfortable with that. If you really believe that he murdered this girl, then what's to stop him from murdering me if he thinks that I'm a threat to him?
You got a great white shark in the neighborhood, and there's a shark attack. And you know that that shark has bloodlust because he's telling his girlfriend.
So we decided we had no choice but to question Ray Moody.
Now, Raymond Moody is still a registered sex offender, so he's responsible for checking in regularly on his schedule.
The Georgetown County Sheriff's Office was responsible for his supervision, and he would register like clockwork. He wouldn't miss a day.
At one of those scheduled appointments, investigators approach Moody and ask him if they can ask him some questions about Brittanee.
Moody was extremely confrontational, not cooperative, didn't do anything to offer an alibi. Basically says, you're the detective, you figure it out.
Investigators uncover that in 2009, when Brittanee disappeared, Raymond Moody was living at a place called the Sunset Lodge, Royal City Hotel, outside of Myrtle Beach, and not that far from where Brittanee's cell phone last pinged.
2 years after Brittanee's disappearance, investigators traveled to the Sunset Lodge armed with a search warrant. The fact that this search occurred 2 years after Brittanee's disappearance certainly complicates things, but it's not impossible to find blood, DNA type evidence in those situations. They cut out pieces of carpet. They cut out pieces of the floor. This is a meticulous search for any piece of evidence that could have put Brittanee Drexel in that room.
Myrtle Beach Police and the Georgetown County Sheriff's Office pulled boxes and bags full of something from the room.
Meanwhile, the media kept their eyes on Raymond Moody for what happened to Brittanee Drexel.
I was watching the news in my dad's living room, and they show Raymond Moody on TV.
Do you know anything about the missing teenager?
No, I do not.
Can you tell us where you were back in April of '09?
Goodbye.
Frank, can we talk to you for a minute, real quick?
You know what? We're going to call the police in a second. You better split. Can you tell us where you were in April? I got nothing to say to you. You understand that?
I have a feeling that is the guy. He just looked sickening to me.
We had this person, we had all this evidence taken out in boxes from the Sunset Lodge.
But the search of the Sunset Lodge turned up nothing. Investigators struck out. They hit a wall when it came to Raymond Moody.
I wish we had had more going, but we were dead in the water. We had nothing on Moody.
If it was Raymond Moody, the police would have had him.
After 2012, nothing was happening with Brittanee's case, and I wasn't getting any answers. I felt alone in doing this because it was just me. I felt like I was the only one fighting for her. And then I met Kim.
I remember when Brittanee went missing in April 2009. She stole my heart. Brittanee stole my heart. When Dawn called me, I immediately went to Rochester, spent a week with her. Dawn said, Kim, she said, I don't think we're ever going to find her. She actually had gotten to that place where it's just not ever going to happen.
There was not a ton of communication with law enforcement, and I felt like, this is my child. I need to know what is going on.
She was still being told that it was an active case, but she got no answers. And then in 2016, Dawn got a call from the FBI.
They wanted me to come in for a meeting, and they wanted to have that meeting before it got out in the media. So we went to Myrtle Beach. They brought me in, and we sat around this conference room, and they proceeded to tell me what they thought happened to Brittanee.
"7 years after Brittanee disappeared, the FBI had a theory. They had a hell of a story for what they believed happened to Brittanee.
Early 2016, a tip came in from an inmate in the South Carolina Department of Corrections. He stated that he was present at a residence in McClellanville, South Carolina, 2 days after Drexel disappeared in 2009.
The whole time we were in this meeting, I was in tears. I couldn't talk. Those images in your mind of what they said happened to her, it was just horrible.
the informant specifically identifies as people who were in that room with Brittany Drexel to be Timothy Taylor and his father, Sean Taylor.
Sean Taylor is the same man who 6 years earlier had his face plastered across the news as a possible suspect in Brittany's case.
The informant said Timothy Taylor was the kidnapper. It was Timothy that grabbed Brittany Drexel on Ocean Boulevard. The FBI said, in addition to the jailhouse informant, there were other individuals coming forward claiming that the Taylors were involved in Brittany's disappearance and murder.
Still, the FBI didn't have enough evidence to charge Sean and Timothy Taylor with their alleged roles in Brittany's disappearance.
Timothy was interviewed by law enforcement, and he acknowledged that the night of Brittany's disappearance, he was with friends in Myrtle Beach.
But Timothy repeatedly denies doing anything that was alleged by the jailhouse informant.
And I remember almost going, Ray didn't do it. So he wasn't lying.
But Timothy Taylor wasn't going to court for Brittany's murder.
No charges have been made related to this case, and no word on how long this investigation will take place.
Although they were not charged, all eyes were on the Taylors for what happened to Brittany Drexel.
There's no evidence to support the accusations. This is why the homicide case hasn't been charged.
I was waiting for the evidence. I was waiting to hear what it was that connected him to Brittany. Where was the DNA evidence? Where is her body?
Just a few months after the press conference, all of a sudden, out of the blue, a search was done by the FBI in Georgetown. It's a very, very unsettling area. They believe Brittany may have been there. There was a stash house back there.
An excavator, K9 units, and the FBI all on scene.
It was a 3-day search. I was there every day for it. On the 3rd day, they brought in backhoes and uprooted trees. But nothing was found there.
At that point, the case against Timothy Taylor was falling apart.
Dawn processed that horrific tale of what happened to her daughter and was then told that can't be proven.
I was pretty upset, and I told him, I said, look, I'm done with the smoke and mirrors. I said, I want my daughter found.
But the investigators at that time believed the Taylors were responsible. This went on for years.
Finally, an indictment came, and it wasn't Timothy Taylor. It was Raymond Moody.
Federal investigators had done everything in their power to corroborate the allegation that Sean and Timothy Taylor had murdered Brittany Drexel. By 2019, the lead was shaping up to be just another dead end.
A new team of FBI agents took over the investigation into the disappearance of Brittany Drexel. They re-examined all of the evidence and the interviews that had been compiled to date.
I was brought in on the investigation and the evidence that they had obtained thus far. Take the evidence that we have, can we do anything with it now that we couldn't do back then? Can we re-interview witnesses? Can anything be enhanced?
These investigators meticulously examined the video evidence of the vehicles that were traveling on Ocean Boulevard the night Brittany disappeared. At some point, they learned there was a Ford Explorer Raymond Moody was driving around that time.
The Ford Explorer had been registered to Angel Voss's brother.
Investigators were looking for that vehicle, and they found it. They know that Brittanee's last text message was sent at 8:58 p.m. They identify the Explorer in the area of Ocean Boulevard and 6th Avenue at the very time that Brittanee disappeared.
You can see the car was occupied by two individuals. You can't quite make out who they are through the windshield, but there's no doubt in my mind that was them, Ray and Angel, and they're a block away from Brittanee Drexel. However, we still had no smoking gun. It was all circumstantial, fairly damning, but circumstantial. We didn't know what level of involvement she may have had, and we won't know until we get her back in for another interview.
I wanted to kind of go back to the beginning on this thing and just talk to everybody who's been interviewed before.
The Angel Voss that was interviewed in 2022 was a different person than investigators originally interviewed in 2011. Gone was the mentioning of how violent Ray had been. She was almost speaking in defense of him.
He was 20 years old, you know, when we went to prison. You know, it comes out he's an older man. Right. You know, it's just, the people change. That's why I never felt, you know, like I really had anything to worry about.
She may have assumed that they were there to discuss Ray's involvement, that they wanted her to turn cooperative and become a witness against him, and she didn't want to hear it.
Because if you're trying to accuse him of anything, then I'm not going to be involved in it. Because I tell you he didn't, okay? I tell you he did not.
I'm not accusing him.
I'm not, yeah, you are. That's what that was. I'm straightforward too.
We just talking.
No, I'm straightforward too. I don't think he did.
Angel started getting pretty upset, and I'm not going to let you, you know, say Ray did this.
That's the truth, then. I think.
I don't know the whole truth. I don't know who it was that night.
At that point, the investigators made it clear to Angel that they were now focusing not only on Raymond Moody, but on her.
We have some information that tells us just a little bit more than kind of what you're telling us. Okay. And so that's why we're here. We want you to be as truthful with us as you can. Okay. Please.
Yeah.
Did you have any involvement in picking up Brittanee Drexel?
Hell no. Mostly did not.
You were never in a vehicle with us?
No, never a vehicle with me. No, period.
Okay.
No.
You're absolutely
positively positive.
We just want the truth.
Right. I know.
Like, and whatever it is, we think you might know.
Right.
At the end of the day, we're looking for great. Thank you. The sports matters, right?
She hadn't provided anything super useful, but ensured us that she was going to continue to be cooperative. She would field our phone calls and answer our texts, you know, when we call, when we text. She wouldn't tell Ray anything.
She'll be out there.
But Angel ghosted them. Angel never returned, and Angel did not participate in the investigation.
We thought we were done. We're like, well, back to square one. But maybe they sensed that the walls were closing in, because what came next was everyone was unprepared for. We get a phone call from the solicitor for the 15th Judicial Circuit of South Carolina. He says, hey guys, Ray Moody's going to come in and give you a confession. And not only that, he's going to take you to the body. We are floored at that point. He showed up at a local attorney's office for our debrief. Our very preliminary, interview, minimal facts, but just enough to establish where we are, what we got, where we're going. I take him into custody right then and there on the spot for obstruction of justice. The next day, we all sat down at a very nice conference table. And he lays it all out.
In April of 2022, the FBI had called me and they had told me, we're getting to the end of this. We're getting close.
There's a lot of stuff that I remember like yesterday. When I was going down Ocean Boulevard, Brittanee's walking on the sidewalk, and she had a pair of black flip-flops on her feet and a pair of red ones in her hand. Angel was with you in the car? She was sitting in the passenger seat.
Raymond Moody claims that he was present in Myrtle Beach that night. He and Angel had been smoking marijuana and saw Brittanee Drexel walking alone on the sidewalk.
She looked over. She said, "That smells pretty good. Would you like some?" So, yeah. We had a nice open conversation, nice and friendly. She was saying she was down from New York.
He and Angel then drove Brittanee down to a campsite in Pole Yard Landing, South Santee of Georgetown County.
We went down there, and he parked and walked up to the tent and sat around. And then shortly after that, that's when I made a bad decision. I was trying to figure out what the hell I'm going to tell her when she gets back. So I came up with this story that she hooked up somehow with her friends over the phone, and they came and picked her up. And she didn't really question me about it. She said, "All right, this is what tripping."
He said that he then later returns that night under the cover of even more darkness and buries Drexel's body in a wooded area out there. I was shell-shocked. I was speechless.
What trash did you get in?
This guy is a monster. I've arrested lots of people at this point in my career. Very few of them are actually pure evil, but we don't have a body yet, so we don't know if he's telling the truth.
Would it be there if we corresponded?
Ray Moody says he'll take investigators to the burial site, but he won't do it for nothing.
I gotta feel very confident that I'm the one that's gonna be held completely responsible for what happened, and nobody else.
He's willing to fall on the sword. He did the crime, but Angel can't get charged.
And I never told you the truth of what happened. I can be a man of my word, if y'all can be a man of your word.
So we get in the car. We drive into Georgetown until we got to just past his old apartment at the Sunset Lodge. He took us to a wooded lot. I asked him, does any of this look familiar? This is it right here.
I don't believe it at all, what Raymond Moody said in his interview. It's a sack full of to me.
I don't think Brittanee would have gotten in the car if Angel wasn't there.
Maybe Brittanee is like, oh, okay, this will be okay because she's just going to drop me off at my hotel.
Once she was inside that vehicle, what did she go through? You just think of how scared she must have been. And how much innocence that she lost. Because he stole everything from her in those moments that he took her life.
The Georgetown County Sheriff's Office charges against Mr. Raymond Moody are murder, kidnapping, criminal sexual conduct in the first degree.
After the press conference, the FBI released a statement saying that there is no connection to Brittanee Drexel with the Taylors.
I feel terrible what the Taylor family have gone through.
The Taylors were public enemy number one for years. They were threatened. They were harassed.
Timothy Taylor never did anything to my daughter.
The latest developments in the case of Brittanee Drexel confirm what we knew from day one. The truth that my son Timothy was suspected without any creditable evidence of a crime he did not commit.
I know that he has 1 or 2 children. He couldn't get a job. Sean Taylor couldn't find work either. So they were at risk of losing everything.
Our family stood by him and consistently spoke out against the false accusations that too often are directed at people who look like us. An age-old story in America.
Our justice system is so broken.
I one day received a telephone call from Ray Moody.
After replayed the entire thing through my mind every day.
I asked him, how could you? How could you have done this?
I'm not looking glad I had this coming, so I can't believe it was right by myself.
When those boys in McClellanville were accused of a crime that you committed, what did that make you feel like?
Obviously, I knew what was going on. I was hoping they'd get convicted. That's what I was hoping.
He was willing to let the Taylors go down for this crime. He was hoping they would be arrested for the murder of Brittanee Drexel. That's who Raymond Moody is.
Thank you. You can be seated.
I was in the courtroom with Dawn the first time she laid eyes on Raymond Moody.
But, Your Honor, he is pleading to murder, kidnapping, and rape, CSC first, and the state is recommending life in prison without possibility of parole.
It was a monster. No, I took Brittanee Drexel's life. I don't have the words to express how horrible I feel.
This was the moment that Dawn had fought so hard for. This was the justice that eluded her since 2009.
Today we know the truth, and today, Mr. Moody, you face the consequences for that.
I could just feel my blood boiling almost in tears.
And to keep monsters like you where they belong, in cages, so they can never harm again. You have no power over me or my family. Forgiveness is not part of this narrative today.
The Drexel family wanted to see the incident location where it happened. It's a remote area.
She was face down. And that really bothered me. He just dumped her in there.
It's sad that somebody would take her life.
Brittany wasn't just a victim. Brittany was so much more, and she would have been so much more had she given the opportunity to live her full life.
She was a great person, and she was a great sister, and